on the verge of World War III? Well, it looks that way, apparently. There's some shenanigans that happened in the Baltic Sea recently. Let's take a look. Sabotage. Now, this is from a few days ago, and things are going to be developing as I go through this report. But as most have heard by now, the Nord Stream pipelines running gas from Russia to Germany, well, they're no more. The pipelines are broken, sabotaged, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to repair those. Probably not for a while, if ever. It could have been a leak, but we found out later there's a couple of explosions that happened that were picked up on the old seismograph. So this Nord Stream 2 pipeline had just been built, sitting there. It's ready to deliver gas just at the perfect time when they could really use it, and have instead opted to put sanctions on Putin. But now it doesn't matter because the pipeline is no longer functioning. Without Russian gas, our economy will be dead. Thousands of protesters march in eastern Germany against soaring energy prices the night before the Nord Stream blast. So they've had their power bills go up exponentially. They can barely afford it, and we haven't really even entered a winter yet. It's still the end of September here, and they're freaking out. And then a day later, oh my God, the pipeline is gone. Protesters were marching against the policy, calling for an end to the sanctions on Russia. They don't care so much about what's going on with Ukraine. They're suffering. They need help. They can't afford to pay their bills, and winter hasn't even started yet. Now, apparently there were demonstrations in other German cities too, but the European Union media just censors them. They don't want you to know that. They're focused on Ukraine and anti-Putin, and they don't care about your power bills. It doesn't affect them. What do they care? They're saying the electricity prices are up 174% over the past year. So could you imagine your energy bill nearly tripling, and it's not even winter yet? So you can see that chart right there, and how the prices have just been absolutely exploding, and then they're closing down nuclear reactors at the same time. But things took an ugly turn for the worse when the Nord Stream pipelines were sabotaged. So there's no reason to protest anymore, because they can't turn them on even if they wanted to. The damage to the pipelines will take months to repair, and repairs are unlikely to begin until next summer. And there's also worries that that's in salt water. So while the exterior of the pipes is fine, the insides that are getting flooded with the salt water could corrode and ruin the entire pipeline. Well, they ruled out the earthquakes, and they've kind of narrowed down the list of suspects. Now, means eliminates most of them. Only a government with advanced naval warfare capability could have executed the sabotage, and that limits everybody to Germany, Great Britain, France, United States, Russia, and China. The geography would seem to preclude the United States, except for the fact the U.S. Navy operates in every ocean in the world with its advanced warfighting capabilities. So the list of suspects to destroy these things would be down to UK, US, Russia, and Germany. So we've down to 4, but Germany has no motive to damage its energy lifeline. Germany is highly dependent on Russian natural gas. Entire German industries are being nationalized because of the lack of energy due to the sanctions against Russia, and Russia reducing flow through the pipelines. Great Britain has also suffered under the sanctions imposed after Russia invaded Ukraine, which was all self-inflicted. The British economy is in shambles, forcing the UK's central bank to pivot back to quantitative easing. So they wouldn't have the motive to do that either. But also Russia seems to have a motive, inflict long-term pain on Europe for sending lethal arms to Ukraine. But Russia wouldn't need to blow up its own pipelines. They twist it. It's a valve. They turn the dial, shut it off, turn it on, turn it off. Why would they go to the trouble to send a submarine or to place mines or what have you on these things? It wouldn't make any sense. Again, you just turn off the spigot. So Russia paid for a portion of the pipeline too. So expect some profit from their investment. So why would they do that? Why would they risk that kind of international incident and blow up their own stuff? Wouldn't make any sense. Here you see Jack Posobiec tweet. You see Russia blew up their own pipeline, but not the Norway-EU pipeline that's right next to it and just opened today. So if they were going to blow up a pipeline, you'd think they'd go after their competitor, not their own. That way they'd have the leverage. So that leaves the United States. Became the #1 exporter of liquefied natural gas to Europe once Russia cut off the flow, and they're dependent on that. And with winter approaching, German unrest on the rise, the State Department would have been concerned the Germans would finally cave in. As we've seen, the protesters are coming out. They're starving. Hey, stop the sanctions on Russia. Turn the pipelines back on and save, but now you can't. They've taken that off the table. So now the Germans can't go wobbly and cave to Ukraine and beg Putin for energy. And then secondly, the Biden family has long been tangled up in natural gas and Ukraine. Hunter Biden was on the board of Ukraine's largest natural gas company, Burisma, position that provided Ukrainian oligarchs with access to Joe Biden. Thirdly, Biden needs to, do something with Congress or the election coming up, needs to make some kind of move, even if it's to delay the elections, perhaps, if we are involved in World War III. So there is some major things heading down. So only the United States has any compelling reason to destroy Europe's energy lifeline from Russia. And only the United States has both the means and the motive. We can easily rule everybody out, as sad as it is to say, because the United States are supposed to be the good guys, right? Now, while we don't know for sure whether the United States blew up the pipeline, we do know for sure the United States has the means, motive, opportunity, and moral deficit necessary to drive the world to the edge of Armageddon in pursuit of power for its elites. On top of that, a former Polish Minister of Defense and current member of the EU Parliament was quick to affix the blame or credit for the explosion. And here you've got this guy, Radek Sikorski, saying thank you. He's thanking the United States on Twitter. And as you can see here in the picture, that is this is all the methane gas that is rising from the Baltic Sea from this explosion of the pipeline. These are the consequences. This is an environmental catastrophe too. And here we continue. Thank you, USA. The Polish MEP raises this. And now we all know. And why would he say such a thing? So this guy apparently attended the Bilderberg meeting in D.C. earlier this year, together with his arch neocon wife, Anne Applebaum, openly thanked the United States for the destruction of the Nord Stream pipelines. And here's his Twitter profile, so it's legit, and it's made national headlines. And this Anne Applebaum has been intimately involved in fomenting the Ukraine war effort. She was actually given an award by Vladimir Zelensky himself earlier this month for being a journalist who is helping fight for Ukraine on the military and information fronts. I would not call her a journalist. She is a propagandist, and she works for The Atlantic, a mouthpiece of the establishment. So they're intertwined, and if they're going to be in these big think tanks with Bilderberger and her husband, they are up to no good. And meeting with Zelensky, obviously there is a major conflict of interest here. Now, Tucker Carlson is suggesting that Biden administration has blown up the Russian gas pipelines. It's the most obvious answer here, so as we've already covered.
So the question is who did it, and of course the prime suspect is obvious. It would be the same man who caused domestic inflation here in the U.S. and stole the 2016 election from Hillary Clinton. That'd be Vladimir V. Putin. The Washington Post got right to it. Putin, they declared, is now weaponizing the Nord Stream pipelines. According to the Canadian ambassador to the UN, Vladimir Putin has decided to use, quote, pollution as an act of war. Progressive Twitter strongly endorsed this conclusion. Putin did it. And that makes sense until you thought about it for just a moment. Vladimir Putin may be evil. They tell us that he is evil. But is he stupid? Probably isn't stupid. And yet, and here's the strange part, if you are Vladimir Putin, you would have to be a suicidal moron to blow up your own energy pipelines. That's the one thing you would never do. Natural gas pipelines are the main source of your power and your wealth, and most critically, your leverage over other countries. Europe needs your energy, now more than ever with winter approaching. If you can't deliver that energy, then countries like Germany have no need to pay attention to what you want. You're in the middle of a war, an all-hands-on-deck war, so you need all the leverage you can get.
Of course, some of these sad political hacks in the media were quick to point out that, hey, it's Tucker Carlson, and this is how we know Russia actually did it. And why? Because they think you're so stupid that you'll believe that Tucker Carlson is somehow an agent of Vladimir Putin. Yeah, here's another hack, Seth Abramson, who says, just want to make sure everyone understands that Republicans are now trying to start World War III to own the libs, falsely accusing their own country of terrorism to try to justify a Russian attack on America. So this is the mentality of some of these people on the left. Actually believe that, okay, so Tucker Carlson is a Russian agent. Well, so is Trump, apparently. You know, that whole thing that he's all the Republicans work for Putin. I guess they're all on the Putin payroll. Now, this guy actually believes Republicans are trying to start World War III by blaming the United States. The most obvious culprit in this, if you'll look at it and be objective and actually be a real journalist, is to say that this is clearly the United States or maybe NATO, something like that. But we can rule out the Russians just with basic common sense. So to falsely accuse their own country of terrorism, nobody wants to believe that our country is involved in terrorism. But at the same time, I also know that the United States, my beloved country, has been involved in the Lusitania attack. It staged the Gulf of Tonkin incident to get us into the Vietnam War. We've got the weapons of mass destruction that weren't real, that justify us getting into a war in Iraq. So this is just par for the course. There are some bad elements in our country that try to get us involved into wars, and it looks like this is potentially another one. So I'd like to believe that it's Russia or some other bad actor, Iran, China, who knows, and that the good guys, America, would never do these things, but let's not be naive here. However, there's an incoming fact check with reality. As it turns out, the United States is clearly the most likely culprit, and in fact, they've actually admitted it. Here you can see Victoria Nuland, who says, quote, if Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
With regard to Nord Stream 2, we continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
Wow. Well, we certainly did see one way or another that they're gone. And then you've got a smiling Joe Biden saying that there will no longer be a Nord Stream 2 because they will bring an end to it. And a reporter asked, well, how will you do that exactly since the project is in Germany's control? And Biden says, I promise you, we will be able to do that.
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
Well, apparently somebody did that, and we've got people on video admitting that they could make it happen. So there is every reason in the world to believe that the United States is far and away the number one suspect of this case. And now Russia's telling the EU to treat the U.S. as a suspect in the sabotage of Nord Stream pipelines. Well, innocent until proven guilty, I guess, but all roads seem to point directly at the United States. You've got Nuland on video, you've got Joe Biden on video, you've got this Polish MEP who's connected to the Bilderberg Group and his neocon wife at the Atlantic thanking the USA for making this happen. on. Anyway, let's hope that the truth comes out and we don't have any more further escalations that could lead us to World War III and nuclear Armageddon. And that's all I've got for this report. So thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time.